Hello there and welcome again to an easy as accounting software video presentation. What I want to discuss today is the quoting screen. If I click on quotes from the main menu, we bring this screen up here. And very self-explanatory. A lot of these videos run in order. I think you need to also see the invoice video because I'm not going to go through everything on the quote screen. If I click on quotation, here's where you can do up a quote to send to a client. It's very self-explanatory. It's almost the same as the invoice screen. What we have here is, the first question you need to ask yourself, is there sales tax included for this quote? Regardless of whether you collect sales tax or not, you might be doing a particular job for a particular client in some industries that don't collect sales tax. So we need to ask that. You need to ask that question as well. Is there sales tax in this invoice? At the moment, the default is set no. Sales tax not included. Yes, there is. So we're going to click it yes, and it brings up the default rate. So that's pretty obvious. Do up a dummy quote, so you can just see it's no difference at all to the invoices. Here, because previously I entered some clients, I'm going to select here. See Bill Smith that we entered earlier on one of the invoice screens. He's already there. I'm going to select him, so he's going to get this invoice. The quote's going to Bill. Reference. Whether you put anything in this box, or this box is up to you. In this case, I'm going to say patio. I'm going to jump down here, and here I can do the description of the quotation. You know, I might have one materials. The price of that might be $250 for that particular thing. I might have 8 sheets of roofing. You can be as complex or as little or as non-complex as what say they're $15 a sheet. Okay, so you get the idea what this is. On the side here, you will see GST yes, because we've clicked that this invoice or this quote is specifically going to include sales tax. It's pretty obvious that each item is going to say sales tax included. But what if you have a combination? What if this is a combination quote? And what if you had to invoice a specific client and part of the specific task is sales tax exclusive? Doesn't come up very often. If, say, we have here, we have 4 hours work. I'm just going to show you this. Say we did 4 hours, it was for 4 hours work at $50. And so let's say that was sales tax exclusive. As of now, it includes sales tax. So 3 hours work at $150 is including sales tax. You see up down here, there's a sales tax on the whole invoice. If I click no, that changed to no. See that? No for that particular item. Look at the sales tax figure down here. Let's watch that as I click this. See it's changing? So it tells us that it's taken sales tax off it. That's what that is. So when you print the invoice, if I have a look to see how it's printed, see it doesn't include that. It doesn't quite tell us that no sales tax, but you know that's up to you to write here. You can go sales tax exempt or exempt sales tax or whatever. It's up to you. This here is only to alter that figure. Right, what I want to do show you now here, the rounding up, rounding down principle, same as there. I think that's done. That quotation is done. We can print in the same manner as described before in the invoice. That's it. So this quote will print, and that's how the client will get the quote. I'm going to finish that. That's done. What can we do with this quote? Once we've sent it to the client, pretty damn obvious. He's either going to accept the job or he's not. Let's say he accepts the job, and let's say that we have completed it. We want to create him an invoice. Obviously, over the side here, we can edit a quote, same as before. Say if you're doing up a long quote, you can do bits and pieces to it and come back and edit it later and finish it off before you give it to a client. All this button does here is a click thing. It's just, am I finished with that quote? Yes or no. So I normally use this in regards to when a client accepts a job or when he doesn't accept a job. If he accepts the task, if it's accepted the job. If he says no, I don't want your quote, I'm going elsewhere, then I just click yes, I'm finished with that quote. I don't need to see it. I just know that quote's finished with. If he says yes, I want you to do the job, I keep it as a no until he's paid, until I've sent him the invoice, that is. And once I've created an invoice, then I click it to yes, just so I know it's dealt with. Whether you use that column is up to you. I mean, I use it, but it's there if you want to. What this here does, this is really, really nice. I love this feature. Instead of having to recreate your invoice when you send the invoice to the client, instead of having to recreate it, you can say, I want to use the information already in the system that's already recorded in the quote and create the invoice. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to show you what happens. If I click this, it says create an invoice from this quote. Yes. It's going to whiz off. It's going to create an invoice for you. And it says some editing may be required. It's now told you that the most recent invoice we created for this quote was $455. If I exit out of this and just jump into the invoice screen, see invoice 455, quote number 1. Quote number 1 happens to be this. So it's created that for me. So if I go back to the invoice, this is out of order because of the date of the invoice. One thing you have to change is the date. Okay, remember it said some details have to be changed? It doesn't know what the date is. It's just quickly doing a quick smash up invoice for you to enter. See, it says no totals. Straight away, that's an easy way to find it because you know that the one you're looking for has no totals. Okay. Until you edit it. The moment you click edit, it brings back the totals. See, the totals come back. So now we're editing this. It's put all the details in there except for the date. You have to change your date, of course, because that's whatever the date of the invoice is you're sending it to him. That's it. Everything is done. If I date this today, I can now print this. And it even gives us where it came from. That was quote number 1. That's all the details as per quote number 1. How simple is that? So now I can date that, today's date, whatever it may be, and I can now print that and send that to the client and say, pay up. You owe me X amount of dollars. That's done. That's lovely. You'll see now that's gone into date order down to where it should be. It's the same as on the income screen. I don't have to jump out of this screen to look at that quote. If I double click on here, it will straight away open the quote screen, and I can edit that and have a look at what that quote was and go, oh, that's what that quote was, that's right. I click finish, I exit this screen, it will go back to where I was on the invoice. So we can jump backwards and forwards the same way as you could with our income to invoice. Okay, we can jump from quote to invoice and from quotation screen back to invoice screen. It all works vice versa. So it's really, really nice. Keeps everything nice and simple to jump around your screens. Jump back into the quotation screen so I can see everything. I don't think there's anything else. So now I've finished with that. I can say, I've finished with it, and he's done with. Now, there is one more thing I will show you. If I was to, let's say this particular client is a regular client, and let's say this was just a small job that was $50 invoice, I can each month have it create a new invoice for me if I wanted to from an old existing invoice, from an old existing quote. I can just do a dummy quote up here, so it's always in the system. Instead of copying an invoice each time, I might just have a copy of a quote, because see, the quote only loses a little bit of the information. The invoice loses a lot more information, loses the name and stuff when you copy it. So I like this feature here. If I just create a new invoice now, it says me a previous invoice was created. Are you sure? Because now what will happen is it will change this. It will put the most recent invoice it created against this quote. See that? It now tells us that's the most recent invoice we created. It's doubled up on the quotes, but you might have done it for a particular reason. And it tells us to come from quote number 1. So you might have a series of quote number 1s. You could use it for that purpose. Most people won't, of course. They'll use it, keep it, the quoting and the invoicing separate, because that's how it normally flows. I will move on to another video presentation. Thank you.